Hi everyone. This video is about the worksheet. The worksheet is a financial document that's created before we get to the balance sheet and the income statement. It's one of the last steps that's done within the accounting cycle. The worksheet is an informal business paper used to organize and plan the information for the financial statements. So this is used internally. It's never made published like the income statement or the balance sheet. It is a rough copy of the information that's going to be going onto the balance sheet and the income statement. It's just for internal use and it's never used externally. Moving forward, this is just a little side note, just so you know that our accounts receivable and accounts payable will no longer be called accounts receivable or accounts payable from this point on. When we prepare a trial balance or worksheet, we will not display every single debitor or creditor's name like we used to. We're just going to have one big account called accounts receivable or accounts payable. They're called control accounts. So the accounts receivable control account represents the sum of all the balances of the individual accounts receivable accounts. So when we get to this point, you are supposed to add up all of the accounts receivable amounts, and that's going to be the accounts receivable control accounts. The same thing is done with accounts payable. Rather than listing all of the people that we owe money to, we're just going to add up everyone that we owe money to and put them into one account called the accounts payable control account. Having two control accounts instead of dozens or hundreds of individuals, debitors, or creditors, it streamlines the worksheet and it makes everything just a little bit easier to read, and it puts everything together rather than having all these different accounts everywhere. Where all these accounts will now be in one place. So accounts receivable and accounts payable from now forward will be accounts payable control accounts and accounts receivable control accounts, in which the sum of all of the accounts are in. So, to prepare the worksheet, I'm going to go over the steps in this video on how to prepare the worksheet, and then tomorrow in class we're actually going to make one. The first thing you're going to do with the worksheet is to write in the title of the worksheet and all of the headings. So we need to have the accounts listed, we need the trial balance, the income statement, and balance sheet listed. These financial statements are ones that we looked at throughout this course. We've done a balance sheet before, we've done an income statement before, and we've done a balance sheet before. So now, since this is a rough copy, we're going to have all of our accounts listed on it along with their values before we move them onto the final copy. So this is what it's going to first look like. After we enter in all of the accounts that we have in the trial balance, along with their values, we're going to determine the net income down below. And then we're going to just extend all of the amounts over into the right columns. So for example, what's going to happen is our bank is going to move over into the balance sheet debit column because that's what it is. Our accounts receivable will be placed into the right columns as well, the right rows. Our supply will be in the right rows on that right column, and so on and so forth. So what we're essentially doing after we list all the trial balance amounts, we're just moving all these values into the appropriate financial statements. So all of our assets, liabilities, and owner's equity, the sum of owner's equity, will go into the balance sheets, and all of our revenue expenses will go into the income statement. Remember, drawings is going to be in the balance sheet. Drawings does not go into the income statement. Then what we do, the fourth step, is to balance the worksheet. So everything must be equal. Our debits must be equivalent to our credits like normal for every single sheet. So we must total up every single column. So for the trial balance, we must total up the debit column, the credit column. For the income statement, we must do the DRs and the CRs. And for the balance sheet, we must total up the debit columns and the credit columns as well. And at the bottom, we must write down what the totals of every single column is. For the trial balance, you will notice that our debits will equal our credits. That must be done before we record it in here. For the income statement, it won't be equivalent, same as for the balance sheet. Our debits will not be equivalent to our credits. The next thing that you're going to do is we're going to calculate the differences. So step 4 has a part A and a part B. So after we take our totals from part A, we are then going to calculate the difference between our totals. So when we take a look at the income statement, we're going to to find the difference between 60,000 and 95,000, and then the total will come right below the debit. For the balance sheet, we're going to find the difference between 101,000 and 66,000, and the total of that will be and the difference will be written in the credits column, as so. You'll notice that the income statement, the difference for the income statement is equivalent to the income of the balance sheet. If it does not balance, you've made a mathematical error, but these two must be the same. Part C of step 4 is to record the balancing figure, so the difference that we got between the two numbers, in the appropriate column. So either in the balance sheet or the income statement. Because revenue, or on the income statement, is greater than the expenses, the difference is net income and is recorded in the debit column. For the balance sheet, because net income represents an increase in capital. So when there's an increase in capital, you're obviously going to record that in the credit section. So in this example, our revenue, the credits, is greater than the expenses, which is debit, so it's a net income. For the balance sheet, the net income, the balancing figure, is on the credit side because the net income increases capital. Now, if we had a net loss, that would be decreasing capital and would be recorded on the debit side. So these numbers must be the same because that is our capital amount. So what happens from here is once you've completed the worksheet, once it's done and looks like this, you're going to create the balance sheet. So all these figures on the balance sheet on the worksheet will be recorded into the balance sheet. So here's my balance sheet, and as you can see, my bank has been recorded correctly, my accounts receivable, supplies, equipment, and so on and so forth. And then the same is happening with my liabilities, and same is happening with my owner's equity. It's all being recorded off of the worksheet. So now with the income statement, the same thing happens. We're going to take our revenue, which is right here, sales. That's going to be recorded in the sales column. And then our expenses will also be recorded in the first column of the income statement, just like normal. And we have completed the worksheet. Tomorrow in class, we're going to be practicing making the worksheet.